I think it's important for people to understand that carving your own path has never been so possible, and looking at other people's successes and trying to recreate those doesn't make sense anymore. You can create that yourself. You can carve your own path, especially with all the tools that we have today.
This is Entrepreneurs the Playbook, where I give you access each week to the world's greatest athletes and executives about their personal and professional playbook and what has made them champions on and off the field. This is the Playbook. This is Dave Meltzer, CEO of Sports One Marketing with Entrepreneur the Playbook. And Jeremy Fall is on today, which is really cool. I gotta admit, Jeremy, I'm a little disappointed. I see your background, I've done some due diligence, and you didn't bring me any food.
I know.
Or drinks even more.
I mean, first time we meet, I was like, figured I would make you wait for the second time.
It's all right, I'll forgive you this time, but next time, this body needs fuel, and they got me traveling around.
I can provide that, so.
All right, well, I have an interesting thing. I read somewhere that a lot of people perceive you as a trust fund baby that was, really creating this business to get girls, drinks, which, what, if I was a trust fund baby, I'd find it very tempting, to go the girl and the drink route. Why does that piss you off so much?
Well, first of all, because I don't have a trust fund. So
Dang, that's what I'm getting. Really, that would really piss me off.
If I was getting perceived as that and I had one, at least I'd have the actual.
Don't you think that's a compliment? Like, I love when people think. Can I tell you a quick story?
Yeah, no,
I hate to interrupt you.
No,
but I love this story. So I have one of my best friends, African-American kid that was adopted. And he had these really rich parents. And I grew up, 6 kids, single mom, completely broke. And we both went to law school, both achieved a lot. But people were like, oh, Rick, he's so successful, he's overcome so much. And like, I was the one. Right, yeah. Do you ever feel that way?
Yeah, I mean, I have absolutely nothing against anyone who has a trust fund. I think it's great, right?
Yeah, me neither. I'd like friends with trust funds.
I'm hoping my kids will have trust funds, but I guess it's the perception, like what you said, like the perception of it coming easy to you without the effort. And I think it may be a little bit vain to a certain extent to want that credit for achieving success on your own. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't ultimately matter, I guess, what people think, because that's what we say, right? But we do care a little bit inside us.
At some ego level, we care,
of course. Right? So when someone says that, without actually being true and realizing like how hard I worked to get to this level, and how much of a struggle it was and everything. So that's why I guess it pisses me off to a certain extent. At the end of the day, I don't lose sleep over it, but it's just simply, it could not be less true than that. So I like to make sure that.
Jeremy, it's interesting because being an entrepreneur and a mentor and a business coach, and I my TV show gets hundreds of different, now thousands of different companies through, and people ask me advice. Hey, I want to start a restaurant or I want to start a bar, and deep in my core, and I've coached like Jason Strauss since he was a young man and other guys. But at my core, I want to say, man, you should really pick an easier business.
Yeah, anything else.
Right.
Like, literally anything else.
So anyone that's successful, it's like being an NFL star to me. It's like if you can be successful at football with all that competition, objectives, shortages, voids, obstacles, all these things, it's the same to me looking at the success that you had percentage-wise, because everybody wants to own a restaurant or a bar, or a club. Yeah.
Now.
Or even when I was like,
right.
we did, and it's not easy. Tell me how, you decided to get into the business and what makes you successful.
Right, so, my mom was in it, right? So I come from somewhat of a bloodline of being in the hospitality industry. My mom did everything she possibly could for me to not get into this industry, knowing how hard it was.
Except you had to live above your first restaurant, didn't you?
Yeah, exactly. So, she had a cafe growing up with my ex-stepfather, who was a chef, and we actually lived above the restaurant. It was in downtown LA 18 years ago, so not downtown that we know today.
Were they successful?
Yeah, I mean, they did well.
Money.
I mean, this was at a time where you couldn't really walk the streets at night. Like when we had to park.
I'm old. I used to run across the street to the Laker game. I get it.
Right. Well, yeah. So we lived in a neighborhood now that's gone a lot nicer, but we had to walk like 3 blocks from where we parked our car because we had parking, and we lived above the restaurant. Our kitchen for our home was the one of the restaurant. It was one kitchen. We didn't have our own kitchen. So back then it's definitely a weird scenario growing up compared to what most people are used to. But looking back now, it really is a really cool story, and I picked up a lot, subconsciously about the restaurant business, being so immersed in it to the point that it's where my home was, right?
Right, and the kitchen was your kitchen.
Right, exactly, right? So, now I look back and it is a charming story. And at the time, like, I never really, I didn't suffer from that per se in any way, but it did give me a start to like discovering my passion. And when I was growing up, this was around the time too where I was applying to colleges and all that stuff. I was about 17. Everything I wanted to do, I wanted to figure out which way it could make me the most money so that I could then invest in restaurants. And then, I woke up one day and was like, if that's what you really want to do, why don't you actually just do that instead of, thinking
making the money, it's a separate move.
Right, because it was that societal pressure of having to like go to college and get a degree and become an attorney or a doctor or something like that, which, and this was at the time where these 20-year-olds were becoming billionaires with apps. So I was really in this weird, generation of kids that were following their dreams, and I was like, why don't I just do what I actually want to do?
Yeah, which is, I one of the best pieces of advice I give young people is just because somebody loves you doesn't mean they give you good advice. And so many entrepreneurs are like, my parents, like my mom wanted me to be a real lawyer, right? I actually went to law school, took the bar, and she told me the internet was a fad. And that if I sold on the internet, I'd be back. And, it sounds like your mom had the same good intentions for you because they see things the way that they experience them. But I did have one quick question, not to go back, but I have ADD. I love this question. How did you order food?
How did I order? Oh.
Growing up. So if that's your kitchen, you have like your own drive-up window or like...
You mean
for your house. You're growing up, like you have this restaurant, like, so it's dinner time. They're obviously feeding people.
Oh, right. So,
like, did you have to order your own food?
So it was breakfast and lunch, right? And I was at school during those hours in high school, in middle school, and elementary school. But at nighttime, we would just cook in the kitchen as if our own. In the day, if it was like a Saturday day and I'd wake up, I could actually, the front door to my house led into the restaurant. Like you had to get into the restaurant and get to my house. So I could walk down and then sit down and eat, which is cool.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there's the in Richie Rich.
Did you have friends over?
There's like, right. In Richie Rich, is like that McDonald's.
Yeah,
and,
that's cool.
I mean, it wasn't quite the same because it wasn't a mansion I was living in, but it was as close as I've gone to that, so.
All right, let's get back on track. But I have these weird questions I always have to ask. So, here you are now. You decide, all right, I'm not going to make the money to do what I dream. I'm going to do what I dream.
Yeah.
And you started by promoting, I think. Isn't that correct?
Right. So I had this idea to do an all-age weekly event in LA that was for kids that were like 12 to 17 in the summer and had nothing to do. So we'd take a nightclub on a Monday. We'd go then when their nights that were closed, basically. And partner with the nightclub, charge a cover at the door, no booze obviously because it's underage. We do like Red Bull cocktails, and then make that it was almost
with
like
a DJ.
Right, it was almost like a cooler school dance in a way, but it was at a nightclub, so we all felt very cool be able to be at a club when we were like 15, 16.
And how'd you deal with the liability of that? Because you were a young guy.
Right. I was like, oh, this is a great idea. I'm just gonna go to the biggest nightclub.
Hope nobody.
Right.
No one gets hurt.
The Avalon was where I did it, which they obviously. We had certain things we had to respect, like there was curfew laws of people being inside the building by 10 o'clock because it couldn't be. Yeah, it was all these things we had to work around. But the first one didn't do as well as I expected because it was we did like 250 people, which like sounds like a lot, but it's 1,500 person nightclub. On their standards, when they're doing 2,000 people a night, it was nothing, right? So. I built a relationship with them though, and I remember them calling me back and be like, listen, like we really love your ideas. Would you like to come intern with us? And I was like, oh, I actually need this for my college apps. So why not? So I went in, interned, and then eventually ended up working there and running nights with them in the marketing promotions department.
And then how did you get involved with your own business?
Right, so then after that, I wanted to get more experience. So I went to different groups, hospitality groups. I bounced around probably every someone you can think of for the remaining 5 years after that. And then when I was 23, I decided to open my own bar, right? Because right. I don't know why, but I wanted to open my own bar. So I did that. I did a pop-up series in 2000.
Who funded you?
So I actually found investors to open a bar called Golden Box that was in Hollywood as well.
Yep.
And I found investors for it that owned nightclubs as well. And then in parallel to that, I found some other guys that had this space in an attic next to an existing bar. And I was like, hey, I'd like to do a pop-up here before opening my own bar, get my name out, and start promoting the other thing. The pop-up blew up, we ended up extending it, and it basically turned into a permanent location. So I ended up opening 2 bars that year.
That's awesome. I had a friend, he came out from New Jersey, And the way that he opened his first bar is that they took in, he kept 51% ownership, but he got all these wealthy ego guys like me and said, hey man, you can own a bar. You tell all your friends you own a bar. You can come in, you can drink for free. And so what happened was, it was a small bar in San Diego, and I think we had 17 or 18 investors on the other 50%. Wow. And so we all didn't have to put a lot of money in, but the deal was we could drink for free. But so what do we do? There's a hilarious thing, because we're all very popular San Diego guys. So it's hilarious. Everybody's in line, and it's like everybody in line saying they're the owner of the bar.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, and everyone's inviting, and I'd invite 15, 20 people. Well, that investment cost me more money, because I'll tell you why. I drank for free, but of course I'm inviting them to my bar. Right. And it was such a slick thing by my boy, because then the bill came. It's not like your ego's not gonna allow you to take all your 15 to 20 friends, right? So I ended up with these huge bar bills that were far more than my investment in the bar, going back in to pay him, who owned like 51%, to my 2%. It was a great business model.
Smart model, yeah.
Yeah. But it was such an ego play.
Yeah.
Talking about ego, huge issues when you own bars, restaurants, etc.
Right.
Because you do have to deal with a lot of people that want things for free, want to get in when your clubs are hot, want to get in.
Absolutely.
What's your best piece of advice for the ego side of staying above that game?
I mean, you're going to deal with egos everywhere you go. I mean, and to a certain extent, to do what we do and to be entrepreneurs, we need somewhat of an ego. You need some form of narcissism. At any level, some have it higher than others, but you need that to be able to convince yourself that you're better at what you do than anyone else in the world. And that's what it takes really to succeed, right? So I think the smart thing is to find a way to be smart about it. And like when you have people that come in with egos, know that that's part of the game, and not to like try to solve that issue and make it disappear, because it's never going to. It's about finding a way to work with it instead of around it.
What about monetizing? Most people think that they see restaurants and bars and these types of hospitality businesses as so successful, but we both know it's very difficult to get that to last.
Absolutely.
And let alone, it may only be one night a week, and how do you sustain a business when you're the most popular place in the world one night a week? Right. How do you look at or overcome that challenge, or what strategy do you take?
And I think it's different for nightclubs and restaurants, right? I mean, like, I'm obviously fully immersed in restaurants, so taking that as an example, I think the advantage that we have now in 2018 with restaurants is that you're building brands that are beyond those four walls. So we're talking about licensing products, media collaborations, TV shows, whatever it is. Like, there's a way to capitalize outside of just your restaurant business. So I think building a restaurant without trying to build a brand at the same time is a mistake in this day and age, with social media taking over everything and the internet being at our disposition. So I think you really need to make sure you're building something that not only can scale, but scale in different ways than just opening 10 restaurants. Because like you look at Cheesecake Factory, right? Like, their model is they can put one almost anywhere in the world, right? The rules have changed now, because people now want that authenticity, and they want some sort of connection to the product that they're consuming. They don't want to feel like they're at a chain. They want to be able to feel that emotion, right? So scaling authenticity is obviously one of the hardest things that we deal with in our current industry, but I think it's finding a way to build something and thinking creatively beyond just food and beverage and what It's trying to figure out like what you don't know and how to monetize that.
It's interesting because I come from a sports background, and I talk about something called the stage theory. And you're so young, and you just kind of blew my mind, because I'm thinking, people don't understand in sports. I come from more traditional, bigger names, real egos. But I'm trying to explain to a lot of people, look, I really don't care whether a stadium arena is full, because to me it's a stage. Right? And so it's what I do with that content. And here you have a different nuance to the stage theory, because, as Shakespeare said, and as you like it, right? The whole world is your stage. Here, the whole world is becoming a stage, because it's actually, people out here, they're participating in your restaurant or club. Right. Virtually 3.2 billion people possible now, instead of just your neighborhood where the cafe was. And then it's like only a select few get to participate in the act, right? Act 1, Act 2, whatever your nights are. And yet you see the importance and the relevancy of building an audience that not necessarily comes to your restaurant all the time. It's much more important to build that brand profile through TV, content, etc. And as an offshoot, you actually are monetizing the restaurant as well. Right. How long do you think that'll last?
The actual monetization part of it.
That strategy of stage.
I think it's about adapting to your current environment, because this strategy may work this year, but it might not next year. It probably didn't. It actually didn't, for a fact, 5 years ago. I can tell you that it wouldn't have worked, right? So I think it's finding a way to adapt to the times and really, not staying stuck in your ways, and remembering that you don't know everything, and you need to constantly be learning and keep an open mind that the decision you made might have been right last week, but it may not be right anymore tomorrow.
So 23 years from now, you'll be my age. Hopefully you'll still look younger. But what advice would you give today to an old guy like me who has some relevance, some understanding of digital media, and has a bunch of young people around him, but there's a lot of people my age in the restaurant and club business. Right. What advice would you give me?
I would say to trust. You kind of answered it when you said you're surrounded by young people. I would say trust the youth, and it's not like my millennial narcissist self telling you that we know better than everyone. But when the market is fueled by, my demographic and like my generation, and the rules have been changed and are really dictated by our behavior. I mean, there's a reason why everyone's looking into millennial marketing and all these things, right? There's a reason why. So I think keeping an open mind, because we can also learn from the generation before us. Like, we need to keep an open mind as well. But I think it's having that synergy, like knowing that what worked for you maybe 10 years ago probably won't today, most likely. And for us, knowing that there is a lot of knowledge that we can learn from you guys because of those mistakes. And it's not about one's better than the other, it's about finding a way to work together. That's like my biggest thing, because I've been in a lot of rooms with guys who had a lot more experience than me, who a lot more. And they'd be like, "Oh yeah, no, we trust you, but we're going to change everything." I'm like, you're not listening. Like, you're just saying that to appease me. But at the end of the day, you're going completely against what I believe in.
Yeah, it's interesting, because I think I'll repeat a lot of times what my younger cohorts and associates will say, and because I have credibility of being older, I'm a genius, right? But yet I've heard the 25-year-old in my office try to tell a 50 or 60-year-old owner of a football team the exact same thing that I'm saying, and they're almost rolling their eyes, etc. Give me one piece of advice that your mother, probably a great figure in your life,
right?
And
absolutely.
Give me one piece of advice that still holds true today that your mother has given you.
I mean, she's given me a lot of advice over the years.
Not all good, we know.
She told me to not. The thing about my mother is that even though she told me to not get into this business, the day I really decided to, she was supportive 100%. And that takes a lot. That takes a lot of intelligence.
I'm the same mom. That's
right.
Awesome.
It is, because it takes a lot of, of love and caring and open-mindedness to be able to have your kid go completely not listen to you and go the opposite direction, and still be supportive and willing to help push forward. So
yeah, if you could subscribe to Jewish Guild, that could just knock you out. So
you're speaking my language.
Yeah. Your children come through you, not for you. That's what I keep telling my mom. She has 6 of them. Your children come through you, not for you. Please let it be. Well, so do you have one piece of advice that she may have given you?
Yeah, it's
an old classic.
It's tough to pinpoint something. Sometimes like when I have conversations with my mother, I think she says things that she doesn't realize are actual advice that like puts things into perspective. Yeah. That I then can use. Sometimes things. Is
there anything that you learned when you were 16? Kind of working those. It was over a decade ago. The world has completely shifted. Is any rules or parts of the business that haven't changed?
Yeah, actually. So my mother's obviously in hospitality, and a lot of times what makes me sad about the industry we live in, it has become very entertainment centric, which is fine. It's become very entertainment. Right. It's very popular, and it's become like we're talking about, like every celebrity wants a cooking show and a cookbook. But the fundamentals of hospitality somewhat a lot of times get lost because people forget that we're here to take care of people and be hospitable. And my mother, when I was working in her cafe and I was, I think, 13 years old, a lot of little things she said resonate to me. Like they may sound like the simple, most obvious things, but it's always those that we forget, right? So, smiling to customers and saying hello, like those are basics that a lot of times we go out to restaurants, and I'm like, did this host really not say hi or anything, and acted like he or she were doing me a favor of being there, right? So sometimes like I will like hear that in my head, you know what I mean, and practice it, right? And those are things I think you can't buy with years of experience. They need to be in your heart.
Yeah, and taught through
And
your
taught,
parents,
yeah, absolutely.
Right? It's interesting because my name, David Meltzer, David means beloved, but Meltzer in German means waiter. So my mom always kind of reinforced that with me, that I was this beloved person that was supposed to be of service. And I teach so many people when they like, oh, give me networking advice. I'm like, try looking someone in the eyes and smiling.
Absolutely.
And saying, how are you? You can open so many relationships with a smile. This interview's made me smile because I've learned so much. Last question.
Thank you.
You're so young, but I know you're a deep thinker. What legacy, Jeremy, do you want to leave when it's all said and done?
I mean, you know, one of my biggest things is finding a way to convey to people that, you know, what I'm doing obviously is specific. It's restaurants, it's food and beverage, it's hospitality, but that mindset can be applied to anything, right? And I get thousands of messages on social, and that's the advantage of today's generation. People asking me like, you know, I want to pursue my dreams, like how do I do it and everything. And the most interesting thing to me is as times progress, it's been people that are in every industry. I get people in music, I get people in, you know, a lot of people in food, obviously, you know, people in acting and architecture, whatever it is. But I think it's important for people to understand that carving your own path has never been so possible, and looking at other people's successes and trying to recreate those doesn't make sense anymore. You can create that yourself. You can carve your own path, especially with all the tools that we have today. So if you have a dream, you know, my thought is there is absolutely nothing that can stop you from actually following it. And it may sound like, you know, like something that's on a license plate, but at the end of the day, like there's really no reason where you can't create what you want to be or become. You know?
Yeah, and compete. That's
Absolutely.
what I like. What makes and evens the field that everybody now, no matter what you own, what you have, we all, with great ideas and content, have access to 3.2 billion people.
Absolutely.
Where, you know, growing up, that wasn't true. And I really encourage everyone to look at Jeremy Fall and what he's been able to do in a very competitive industry, because it can carry over to a lot of other successful businesses. And you know, I look forward to always being on your VIP list, right? Let the whole guy in.
Always.
I'll be myself.
I'll send you those bills.
Bring the platinum card. These kids are dying. Like, make sure we get on the list, because I'm just you famous. When I go to clubs, they're like, just you. And all these guys are like, dude, can't you get me in? I'm like, sorry, Jeremy just put me on the list. Anyway, I really appreciate your time, Jeremy.
Thank you so much.
You're a superstar entrepreneur. This is Dave Meltzer with Jeremy Fall. This is Entrepreneur, the Playbook.